Welcome everyone, I'm Dale and this is Cinema Historia. A Klondike Gold Rush, a corrupt judge, and a cheated miner. This week we're going back to 1954 for a Western film called The Far Country, starring James Stewart, Ruth Roman, Corinne Calvert, and Walter Brennan. And this is directed by Anthony Mann. So where does our story begin this week? Well, our story begins in 1896. Jeff Webster, played by James Stewart, hears of the Klondike Gold Rush, and he and Ben Tatum, played by Walter Brennan, decide to drive a herd of cattle to Dawson City. After loading their cattle on a steamship headed for Skagway, the captain becomes aware that Jeff has a killer charge against him and searches the ship to hold him for custody. Jeff meets Rhonda Castle, played by Ruth Roman, on board and ends up hiding out in her cabin until they arrive in Skagway. Upon arrival, the captain asks Ben for an additional $500 for handling charges in order to release the cattle. An upset Jeff and Ben open the platform gate, releasing the cattle, which stampede through the downtown of Skagway, damaging a hanging platform. Annoying their self-appointed Judge Gannon by interrupting a hanging, Gannon angrily confiscates Jeff and Ben's herd to pay for property damages. With Rhonda needing more men to help take supplies to Dawson, Jeff and Ben sign on to assist in the journey. One evening, Jeff and Ben leave camp alone to take the cattle back and make them a part of the caravan, bringing back a girl named Renee, played by Corinne Calvert, with them, invoking Gannon and his men in a hot pursuit. After crossing the border into Canada, Jeff uses a few warning shots to persuade Gannon's gang to give up the chase, but the judge promises to hang Jeff when he returns through Skagway. With everyone now arriving in Dawson, Jeff finds a widespread lawlessness. Jeff and Ben ignore it, however, and auction off their herd for $2 per pound to an unwelcomed Rhonda Castle. You see, Rhonda, who had hired Jeff, happens to be the local saloon owner and one of Judge Gannon's business associates. Sounds like trouble. So, do Jeff and Ben return to the Canadian border to find Gannon and his gang waiting? Does Judge Gannon and his gunmen arrive out of their jurisdiction and begin stealing gold claims? Or does a loner and a devoted sidekick side with the cheated miners and bring law and order to the citizens of Dawson? Released July 22nd, 1954 in London, this was the fourth film collaboration between director Anthony Mann and James Stewart. 88% of Google users like this movie, and film critic Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 100% rating, making such claims as Jimmy Stewart and the rest of the cast are absolutely fantastic in the northern rather than the western. A great Sunday afternoon popcorn movie full of larger-than-life characters with some of Hollywood's legends at their finest. And lastly, the second best western of all time. That's a big statement. I wonder what the first one is. I know this one's one of my favorites. Let's see if the Western fans can nab the trivia question this week, however. Did a star develop a great rapport with his horse in our film? Did a star develop a great rapport with his horse in our film? So, a little more history and the answer to our trivia question coming up next. Even though our film's story is based in Skagway and Dawson, our film was actually shot in Jasper National Park, making Jasper National Park the subject of this week's history. So Jasper National Park in Alberta, Canada is the largest national park within Alberta's Rocky Mountains, spanning 4,200 square miles. The park contains the glaciers of the Columbia Icefield, springs, lakes, waterfalls, and mountains. The territory has been inhabited by indigenous peoples such as Nakota and Cree for several years, with Plainview projectile points being found at the head of Jasper Lake dating back to between 8,000 and 7,000 BCE. First Nations land use for game was primarily elk, moose, mule deer, and occasionally caribou. Starting in the 1790s, Nipissing hunters and trappers moved in large numbers to the eastern side of the Rocky Mountains. Jasper National Park's name originates from Jasper Hawes, a Maryland-born fur trader who worked for the Northwest Company. Jasper Forest Park was established first, however, by a federal order in council on September 14, 1907. In 1911, the Grand Trunk Pacific laid track through the park and over Yellowhead Pass, founding the town of Fitzhugh around the company's railway station being renamed Jasper in 1913. Soon after the railway track cleared, there were already 8 hotels established, plus the opening of the Jasper Park Lodge in 1922. Renamed as a national park in 1930, Jasper National Park has become the hub for a variety of outdoor sporting activities. And the Athabasca Glacier seen early in the trip to Dawson made filming a little easier, as climate change had caused a significant retreat of the glacier since the year of filming, retreating at about a rate of 16 feet per year. The Athabasca Glacier is one of the 6 principal toes of the Columbia ice field located in the Canadian Rockies. Easily accessible, it is the most visited glacier in North America. The Columbia Icefield Glacier Center stands across from the glacier, used as a lodge, with 2 restaurants and a Starbucks located in the center. Buses transport tourists from the center to the glacier edge, where they board snow coaches for transport over the steep grades of snow and ice part way up the glacier. Isn't that an interesting tour? Here's something interesting. The answer to our trivia question this week. Did a star develop a great rapport with his horse in our film? Yes, and it was James Stewart. James Stewart had developed such a rapport with his horse, which he named Pi, that he rode it in 17 films, including this one. Stewart loved the horse and said he was one of the best co-stars I ever worked with. The owner, a little girl named Stevie Myers, daughter of a man who wrangled horses for cowboy actor Tom Mix, owned a Sorrel, Arabian, and quarter horse mix named Sweetie Pie. For Pie, as he was dubbed by James Stewart, was one of the most famous featured horses in films during the heyday of westerns. He was able to get the horse to do something at Liberty all by himself, even when the trainer wasn't around. Although he was never able to buy the horse, Pie was buried on the Stewart Ranch after his death at the ripe old age of 30. Just amazing. I'd like to give a big thank you to all my new subscribers this week and viewers. Thanks for jumping on board and helping support my channel. I added a link down below of another Jimmy Stewart Western, Bend of the River from 1952. He rode Pie in that movie as well. Click the link and enjoy. Thanks for watching, everyone, and we'll see you soon.